Well, how's it going, guys? So, I'm here with another video, and it's taking me many man-hours to go through all of this evidence and all of this material so that way I could actually make a video of some coherent sense. Which, if I sound tired, then I really am. So, let's go ahead and we're just gonna timeline all of this stuff and just bring everything out here in the front and center. So if you've been keeping up with any of the news, or if you're a common anime convention goer, then you may know who Vic Mignonga is, who is the voice actor of Edward Elric or Brawly from the Dragon Ball series that you may fondly remember, or Ouran High School Host Club, or whatever you may watch. Well, he's been hit with a scandal of sorts, one that is chronicled through Anime News Network's article called Far From Perfect. Fans recount unwanted affection from voice actor Vic Mignonga. And if you follow this article, then you'll find a lot of mistruths in there, but you'll also find a lot of important things that are real truths. And that's what we're here to discover today, is what we can really pick apart from not just this article, but also from the Lost Pause video that he brought out. It's titled Famous Anime Voice Actor Vic Mignonga Under Heavy SJW Fire. Noble News. And as much as it pains me from my older videos talking about social justice warriors, I've kind of taken a more backseat approach to all of the political talk, and I don't really much care for it, and unless pedantic saying something retarded, and then at that point it's just a little bit fair game, and that's a whole different story. But anyways, so in this, we can kind of get a little bit more of a rough idea of what exactly people are complaining about, and see what we can really take away from all of this. And I even said on Twitter that this is some good reporting. Now, good reporting doesn't mean that it is completely accurate, and I can walk that back myself. So let's take a look at this from our own perspective and see what we can pick apart now, since we have open lenses.
Anyway, as you can probably tell from the thumbnail, voice actor Vic Mignonga. Hopefully I said his name right. It's extremely hard to say, so I'm just gonna call him Vic from now on, just to avoid embarrassment.
Okay, so before anyone tells me that I'm gonna be nitpicky, I just want you to know that I don't really much care for Noble. I mean, I don't dislike him, but I don't really... His humor is kind of weird and cringy.
Has been accused of a lot of things lately, and it's pretty serious stuff. Among it includes being homophobic, being an absolute jerk, and also sexually assaulting people, including minors. So, it's pretty heavy stuff.
So I had a little bit of help to find a lot of these things that I was going to use for the video, and I will say that it's pretty easy once you get on the right track. And as far as I can tell, this has been going on for many years. So the fact that it is still out here and you can still kind of look up most of these sources that haven't been taken down yet, you can kind of get a rough idea. So out of the 3 things that Noble has listed, 2 of them are 100% accurate. But it seems that the one about sexual assault, that one may not be so true, but we'll get into that as we go through this entire video.
If you guys have absolutely no idea who Vic is, he is a voice actor, a super famous voice actor dub of anime and video games. And he's done such titles like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is rated the #1 anime on MAL. And he voiced the main character, Edward Elric.
But aggregate scores from my anime list don't count. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong video. I just thought I'd throw a funny in there, but yeah, go ahead and continue.
If you want to see other things that he's done, well, just look down the list here. Just look down the freaking list of all the stuff that he has ever done, and it seems to go on for an absolute freaking eternity. He's probably one of the most recognized voice actors in the industry right now. And especially since he recently voiced Brawly in the Dragon Ball Brawly movie.
Okay, since this is a good time to interject, I'm just going to go out here on the record, and I'm going to say that I did not enjoy the Brawly movie. I thought it was a good movie, I just didn't think it was a great movie. The animation and the sound were great, I just think that the story just was too predictable.
Alright, now that you know who he is, I'm gonna try and take the most unbiased stance I can while looking at the facts and also giving you my own opinion on it. Because what's the point of me doing this video if I don't at least give you my own opinion on it? It makes it more interesting, I guess.
Oh, sir. You haven't seen the YouTube comments for this video yet.
Now, can I possibly cover every single thing that's being thrown into the mix in this one video? Obviously not. Okay, so don't hate me if I can't cover every single piece of evidence and throw it in here, okay? Evidence is a term I use lightly in this, because among it, it's just rumors for the most part. Anyway, since a lot of the big dogs such as like Polygon, Anime News Network, and a bunch of other sites are covering this particular story, I figured I might as well put in my 2 cents as well here. Because you guys know that I've always been a fan of trying to get the facts right. And I'm just gonna say, I'm not always right, okay? I won't even pretend to say that I'm always right. But I will at least attempt to give you all of the correct info about what's going on so far. At least with all the truth behind it and none of the rumor part.
Don't worry. Detective NECRO is on the case, and we're gonna see if we can try to crack the case here and at least come to somewhat of a resolution. I don't think that we really will at the end of this video. I'm just gonna give you a spoiler alert, so we're just gonna figure this one out and play it by ear.
Anyway, I should start with probably his Twitter statement right here, which reads as following.
That goes on for quite some time, so what I'll do is I'll read it instead, and I'll put it right here, so that way if you wanted to hear my voice instead of Noble's, then you can, and if you wanted to hear his instead of mine, then of course there's a link there, and then you can just go over it. Vic goes, "This is heartbreaking. Over the last few days, a number of comments and allegations have been voiced on social media. I'd like to share my thoughts. Homophobic? No. Some of my dearest friends are members of the LGBTQ community, including several that I brought into my production family on Star Trek Continues. This is a blatantly false statement. I said many years ago that I didn't think a particular character I voiced was gay, contrary to what some fans believed, not because it matters to me at all, but because I was told this was the case. I also elected not to autograph Yaoi, not because I am homophobic, but because I didn't wish to sign material that was not canon. Anti-Semitic? I couldn't even grasp where this was coming from until someone pointed me to a moment years ago where I was at a panel and referred to a bunch of noise coming from another room jokingly as, quote, a Holocaust. As I said then, it was a metaphor for Armageddon, death, and mass destruction, but not the Holocaust. Could I have chosen a different word? Sure, in retrospect I could have, and of course I am sorry that it offended anyone. I sincerely apologize to any convention staff member who ever felt I was anything less than kind and grateful to be included in their event. Unknown to most staffers, contractual arrangements made in advance with cons were occasionally not honored when I arrived, and that made me frustrated. That does not excuse making anyone feel badly, and I am deeply sorry. I would also like to sincerely apologize to anyone who ever felt my interaction with them, a hug or a kiss on the cheek or forehead, was crossing a line. Never in a million years would it be my intent to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Rather, it was meant to show gratitude or support. I come from an affectionately expressive family where such displays are commonplace, but I understand that not everyone feels the same way. Hence, I will not be interacting in the same way with fans in the future. Understand this is the climate we live in, and this is how it has to be. To my fans who ask me for hugs, etc., I'm sorry, but please know that I am no less grateful to or supportive of you. Finally, any allegations of sexual harassment, sexual assault, or most disturbingly, pedophilia are completely and utterly false. My heart weeps for anyone who endures a violation of this kind, so to be accused of harming others in this way, I have no words. Sincerely, Vic Mignonga.
Now that was a mouthful for me to say there, but that's obviously the most important thing on here, which is his official statement. And so now I'm going to be addressing these in at least a matter of importance as I go down here to show you where these claims are coming from. So we're gonna start where the homophobia stuff comes into play, and that was at a con in 2007, Toronto Anime Con, where he got this question.
So as Noble said, this video is from 2007, but it's important to note that the video in question was uploaded on December 31st, 2007, and the actual event, Toronto Anime Con 2007, took place on December 9th. Just keep that in mind as we go through this video.
And I'll be out there as long as I possibly can before I have to leave, okay? Yes.
Hi. Given that Clamp has a lot of homosexual themes in it and the mounting evidence against Phi being a little less than straight, what's your take on his sexuality?
Well, that's about all we have time for.
So, yes, he got a question about what do you think is his sexuality at a con in front of a bunch of fans. And you know how fans are. You know, they like messing with you and stuff like that. You know, like, that's how it goes. You can't really control what they say at Q&A panels.
Now I'm going to go against the grain here and say that this woman was completely within her right to ask if she thought that, in his opinion, if the characters were gay or not was a very appropriate question. Now, me personally, I don't think I would have responded as the way that he did, but we'll get into his response here in a second. But to say that she might not be a fan because she asked a question about if a character might be homosexual or not doesn't really rub me all the right way. And not in that way. Just, we'll get to the video.
And his response to the jokingly, well, that's all the times we have question for, is probably how it should have ended there, but he does continue to answer the question because, you know, when you're up on stage, you kind of feel pressured to do it, so, you know, let's just go.
Okay, here's my answer. No, I've actually, as you can imagine, I've been asked this many times. Here's what I think. All right? You listening? I've spoken with Clamp. I spent time with Clamp at Anime Expo 2 years ago. They were there. And it may interest you to know that Phi and Kurogane are not homosexual with each other. Okay?
Tsubasa wasn't licensed over here 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And you don't read manga as far as
That's true, because I'm not making manga, I'm making the anime.
How would you know to ask that question if you
Oh, I didn't ask it. Colleen Klinkenbeard did. Colleen Klinkenbeard asked about Tsubasa because it was in existence. It just hadn't been licensed yet. So they were asked about it. Now let me explain something real quick.
The story seems kind of weird. And don't worry, spoiler alert, I already know the answer, but just to keep some suspense here, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that I don't know until we get to this next clip here.
Alright, so he just said, like, he got the information, and I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not even going to question it. Apparently, one of his colleagues asked about them being homo, and they got the response saying, no, they're not homo with each other.
I don't know why you're saying homo like that. Just say that they're gay. They're gay with each other instead of saying homo. It just sounds weird. Anyways, there's a couple of problems with Vic's story, and we'll get into that right now. So he says that he had talked with Clamp, and that was at Anime Expo 2 years ago. Now, I went back and I researched a little bit because the video came out in 2007, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he meant 2005. Well, he wasn't a guest there, and neither was Clamp. But then I looked forward to Anime Expo 2006, and that's when they were all guests there. Clamp, Colleen Klinkenbeard, and also Vic Mignonga himself. Now, someone could say, well, maybe he just misspoke or forgot the years or got them mixed up. But he couldn't have. And that's simply because when he was talking about Tsubasa, he said that it was only in existence, but it hadn't been licensed yet. And this was when he was talking with Clamp over at Anime Expo. But that was in July of 2006. And already Funimation had licensed Tsubasa, the TV series, back in January of 2006, according to this article made by Anime News Network. Since we want to go ahead and use some of these, quote, credible sources, and I guess they were more credible back then, so I guess this kind of works.
Now, if you guys have read Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, or watched it, because it's also an anime, and the anime varies completely from the manga, let me tell you that, because I think at the time it was being made at the time that it wasn't being, like, it wasn't finished. So obviously, animes can't go to the end if the source material itself isn't finished. So he is speaking from the anime, and which I would also agree is like, yeah, in the anime, they weren't really doing that kind of homo stuff with each other. Even though in the manga, there is strong bromantic stuff going on. And I mean absolutely strong bromance going down. But, you know, nothing like kissing. And we all know that Clamp is very keen on having homo couples. I mean, like, Cardcaptor Sakura, which is what Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles is based off of, had the brother and his best friend of Sakura basically being a couple together. And it's kind of mirrored in Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles of the white-haired boy and the black-haired guy kind of being the brother and also like the best friend being a little bit romantic. Anyway, continuing.
Now, I'm no genius when it comes to Tsubasa or anything like that, but I mean, if it had those themes already in the source material, then maybe some of that would translate over to the anime. But then again, we all know that sometimes we just don't pick up on those kinds of things, or they just don't feel like including them because it needs to be made, and sometimes those things are generally frowned upon. But I mean, at this point, I don't think that they really cared as long as they got it out there. But like I said, I'm no genius about this particular anime, but you know, after a little quick Google search, I'm sure I could figure it out. But I think that's pretty much left for another day, and that's completely besides the point.
There's no question at all that Phi, if you were to assign roles, if you were to take the four of them, Sakura and Sharon and Kurogane and Phi, if you were to take those four and call them a family, Phi's the mom. Clearly, right? Phi is the nurturer and the softer one, and you did really good there today, you know? And Kurogane is clearly the dad. Would you disagree?
I think I would, given that I'm sorry, but I've read farther into the manga, and it's pretty much clear at this point that they are relatively long lines of soulmates.
Okay.
Alright, so like, you can tell that this girl is actually being toxic at this point here. Like that, it was pretty much established in the manga that, yeah, he had the mom role. He'd assigned himself as the teen mom and Kurogane as the dad. Like, it was actually in the manga. And she just blatantly disagrees, but no, I read the manga. Like, clearly not if you're disagreeing with it.
And this is a good point, because she is being a little toxic, especially since he's agreeing with what she's saying, and that's what happens in the manga, especially with this kind of evidence. So, I mean, again, this is kind of a null point, but I guess it ultimately wraps around to something, question mark?
Look, I understand, like, you want your pairings, that's fine. You can have whatever pairings you want. Like, feel free, I don't care. But like, come on, man, stop being toxic and say like, this is the one true pairing. If you don't agree with it, you're wrong. Like, come on. Vic then goes on to say, okay, basically you're saying like they're soulmates and that they're doing it with each other, right? In which case they weren't. And she was just like, whoa, I find that offensive. How could you say that? There's much different ways to be homo with one another rather than doing that. And they're like, yeah, he agrees with it and I agree with that. But at the same time, man, like, come on. Like, you're pushing things a little too far here at a freaking fan convention.
Yeah, the video that was uploaded is, like, pretty long, and there's multiple parts where they're talking to Vic Mignonga there. But, yeah, I mean, pretty much what he said. I don't really have anything quite on this topic because I'm kind of on the outside looking in on Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles because I don't know anything about it.
And since it wasn't in the anime, which he continues to say, it's just like, well, there's none of that's in the anime where they're doing all that kind of stuff there. And so he just says, like, if it's not in the anime, then they're not that way. And even in the manga, they didn't do it anyway. Finally, the last bit here is Vic claiming he does not sign yaoi because it's not canon materials preposterous. My best friend drew a picture of his OC next to Edward Elric, and Vic signed it. This is not an example of other fan work he signed. This is a lie.
Okay, so here's where it gets a little bit tricky, because that post with everything blocked out, it was really hard to find. And according to Anime News Network on that article, they were able to see the Yahoo group where they had the Resemble Rangers, and on that post it says, no posting adult content. This too is self-explanatory. Vic is a Christian and does not approve of yaoi, yuri, hentai, etc. If you are a fan of Vic, you would know that. We are not saying you must clean up your life because of that, just that it has no place here. End of discussion. I was able to find the Yahoo group itself, but I wasn't able to see any post, and it looks like some of the last posts that were on that website were from 2016. And I wasn't able to read any of the rules or guidelines on the website just from the outside looking in, because you would need to have membership approval. And obviously I don't want to become a member just because. I don't really sign up for anybody's like fan group, but apparently that was a thing and I just couldn't see it. So there's no way for me to verify that it says that without having to actually go to that website and become a member. Now, here's a little bit more critical thinking for you. So, me, myself, have went to just a very few number of anime conventions, but I remember taking a picture at one of them, and you can see here that at Anime Weekend Atlanta, you can see that they list the prices and the things that you can bring with you, and it tells you if there's anything that you can't use. So in this particular case, if he was not going to sign any fan fiction material or pictures of OCs or things like that, or yaoi or hentai and things like that, he would put it there.
So fans are upset that he won't sign their boy love sexual stuff at cons in front of many different people who are probably underage. Does this not send off like oopsie doopsie signals?
Again, I think the conversation at this point needs to shift a little bit more towards, if he's not going to sign those things, he could have made it very well known on a sign of some kind, or maybe posting something on the door so that way people could go into the room and they would know exactly what his policies were. In fact, just in the limited experience that I've had going to a convention, people will sign just about anything you give them, especially if you go to the artist alley and you buy something from an artist. Generally, even if it's not safe for work, they will sign it. Especially if it's from the Sekai Project booth that I had a couple of books from. I took those to the respective authors and they signed it. And just because we want to say that there may be minors or children around is kind of a weak excuse too, because there's usually parents there with you. If you're under a certain age, they don't let you into those places, especially if there could be R18 material.
Look, even I feel awkward signing that kind of stuff, but I still do it. Like, because I love you guys, and you guys took the courage to bring it up to me, but I am a very different kind of person than Vic. But you have to know that this man is not associated with that kind of stuff. He has no presence in that industry type. And think about it. Even I would feel awkward if someone gave me my OC, a picture of myself in a very compromising position doing something to another dude, maybe like, I don't know, a male version of Lily. I would feel very awkward about that, of him showing this to me. And just because I don't want to see it doesn't make me a homophobe. It just means I'm straight.
Noble, you have no idea all of the hentai that is drawn of me right now. And I will probably sign every single bit of it too. But again, even as you said, Vic is a much different person than you or I, and his standards are a little bit different. Now, I'm not saying that people should just go ahead and, see what his boundaries are by just giving him boys love material or hentai of some kind. I think that maybe there's always a way to not do things like that and be a degenerate, but then again, some people think that the internet is real life. Because it is.
And think about it. What if the roles were reversed? What if a fan brought a compromising picture to a female artist, a male did the opposite here and said, here, would you please sign this off-brand anime picture of you, in a very awkward position and getting, fluffed? Wouldn't that count as sexual harassment?
Okay, I'm gonna level with you here. So the picture wasn't of Vic himself, it was of Edward Elric. And I don't really know what people bring to him because I'm not there with him. But if you're taking a picture of a character that he plays, that's not him. That's just a character that he voices, and sometimes people do take the characters that they voice very seriously, as evident of things that they do and say on Twitter and the interactions that they have. I see a lot of that stuff happen.
At least to some kinds of people here, I'm pretty sure that would. So the fact that you're being offended of him not signing yaoi is preposterous. Just bring him a normal picture. You're at a con full of underage people surrounding you. Like, you better bring some normal pictures that he can sign publicly, all right? There's a time and place for your stuff, but not in public, bro.
I agree. There is a time and a place for everything, and sometimes you have to use common sense about things that you would bring to another human being that probably just, does this thing for fun. Much like myself.
There was also even a clip of him arguing against Christian protesters saying like gay marriage is bad, and him saying that's not what I believe God, and he's a man of faith, should say to people. He should welcome them with love and not with hate. But like they're saying like it feels like it's set up and it's just for publicity purposes. Well, fine, whatever. I won't cover that one too well. Okay, sure.
It's kind of weird that we skipped over that one and that we're not going to get that video in, but you know what, let's move along because you're going to show us BayouCon, and this one's going to be interesting.
But this next clip is him from a BayouCon in 2013 when a fan asked him this question.
Who's got a question? Yes, sir.
Exactly a question, but no. What? Gay marriage.
What is my... Really?
What?
Do I really want to answer that?
Maybe.
Alright, so a fan says, what are your thoughts on gay marriage at a con? What? Why would you ask that at a con? Have some decency. That is not where you ask that question. And then people call him a coward for like not wanting to answer that question. You're a coward? You're not gonna answer that question? Like, that's a con, an anime con. It's not the place to answer that. It's a time for people to have fun, to escape away from that kind of political stuff. All right? People are there to have a good time, not talk about politics. But anyway, he goes on and answers like this.
Now, he could have taken this a couple of different ways. Vic, I mean, not Noble, I mean, well, either or. But he could have taken this a couple of different ways. He could have just not responded to it and just moved along with his life. He could have just said, well, that's not really the time and place, exactly what you said. Or he could have, just yelled at him and went up to his face and told him, exactly how he felt. We'll see which one of those options he takes.
Excuse me? You gonna yell something and walk away? Come here. Come a little closer.
Oh, God.
What were you saying? Yeah, but then you yell something after. If I don't answer and I'm a coward, well, I can promise you I'm not a coward, my friend. So I'm gonna walk right up to your face and tell you what I think, okay? Here's what I think. The people should rule this country, not the government. This country was created by the people, for the people. There should be votes in this country. And when the majority of the people say what they want, that's the way the country should go. Period.
Go big.
So, I mean, even though I know that the question was way off topic for an anime convention, I don't think I ever really got a straight answer other than government bad, people good.
Alright, so basically he's just said to this asshole, and yes, I'm gonna call him an asshole because that is not a question you do, and that is not the behavior you should have when asking that kind of question. He basically just said, hey, the people voted for this. With their own free will, they wanted this, and I believe they're right for that choice, just by saying that he agrees with that. So yes, he supports gay marriage.
Well, he didn't definitively say that he supported it. He said that if the majority voted, then that's the way that it should be. I'm not really like picking any sides because I have absolutely no dog in this race here, but it definitely was not a definitive answer, and I'm going to go ahead and take that stance on it. I mean, as much as I would absolutely love to agree with you. I think that even though Guy is an asshole, yeah, I agree. Vic also did not give clarification to the answer, but just for this reason in particular. Why are we even on this topic? Because it's not anything to do with anything else other than we don't really know if he's homophobic, but people throw that around so much that we don't even know the true nature of being homophobic at this point.
Is that not definitive proof enough? As one of my friends pointed out one time to me, and I agree with this statement, if we can be miserable in marriage, so should everybody else.
I'm not one for marital talk, but I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say that people that do go for gay marriage, they want it for a particular reason. They want it because they really love that person. Otherwise, they would just break up and they would, go to somebody else. But if these people want to get married and they're willing to fight for it, I think that bond is strong enough that they wouldn't be miserable together. And that's just kind of like a new take that I have.
And before I wrap all that up, I just want to say that is from like more than 10 years ago on some things. And you should know that you are a completely different person from you 10 years ago. And your views are going to completely change in that time. And the fact that they're them holding him responsible for stuff that he said years ago, and the fact that he was actually still supporting them, is ridiculous. Anyway, this is from a panel at Techo ShowCon 2010, where people are saying that he's basically a Nazi.
I said, we're in here, having this quiet time, and it sounds like they're having a Holocaust outside.
Okay, time to put my defensive Vic hat on, and I'm gonna go ahead and say that he did clear up the misunderstanding and that he should have chose a different choice of words, but honestly, I would have probably said the same thing, but I probably would have said that they were probably having like a dance-off next door or something. I don't know. I would have said something more in the heat of the moment, but I mean, when the evidence is out there, I mean, people can interpret it whatever way they want, and that's pretty much what this is just open for interpretation.
Because there was like, screaming all kinds of stuff outside. Now, I'm sorry, guys. Don't be offended. Holocaust is a generic word. It's a word. See what I'm saying? It's not a specific thing. There is the Holocaust, and then there is a word, Holocaust. And you can look it up in the dictionary, and it has a generic meaning.
So there you go. The definition for a Holocaust is destruction or slaughter of mass scale, especially caused by fire or nuclear war. An example being a nuclear Holocaust, as seen as in many video games and used in video games since.
Well, to be fair, a lot of those video games, they don't really use the word Holocaust. They kind of use more along the lines of nuclear fallout or a nuclear destruction or atomic bomb. They don't really ever say the word Holocaust. I guess more to the point, but I mean, the definition is there in plain black and white, so I guess you could take it that way or you can take it the Holocaust way. Like I said, it's more open for interpretation, so I wouldn't necessarily label him as a Nazi.
With all the zombie stuff going around. The fact that people are getting offended at him using a word, just a natural word in the English dictionary, is that's absurd. Do you get offended if I use the term gay? It's like, I'm gay. Not as in I'm homosexual, but as in I'm happy. Yes, that term has gotten a completely different meaning now, unfortunately. It used to mean you're just happy, but now it's just you're homosexual, and it had kind of like a negative connotation, but now it's positive, and I don't even know what's wrong, if it's even bad to say now. I just wish people stop being delicate snowflakes over a word.
I know, who's being a snowflake over words? I can't even go on Twitter and say
Anyway, just calling him out on something as silly as that kind of feels something scummy like the Wall Street Journal does to PewDiePie. That's just bad. The man even apologized if the word offended people too. So I don't know what to say. Okay, the next one is him just being a jerk to staff members. Which there's, a lot of accounts of people telling stories of him being just a general jerk. And I don't really have anything to say to it. Yes, Mr. Vic could very well much be an absolute prick. He could be an absolute asshole. It could be true. All the videos I've seen of him so far on the internet have proven to me that he's just a normal, upstanding guy. But that's when he's in public and other stuff. I don't know about his private life.
That's the thing with almost anyone or any celebrity. If a camera's rolling, then they're probably the nicest person that you've ever seen. Or they probably do all the right things. They mind their P's and Q's. But if they're alone, or if they're in confinement, or if they're talking to staff, then yeah, they can be pretty irate. And I used to be a driver for a musician, and I can tell you that on more than one occasion, he would get pretty loud with a lot of the staff that were working at the events that he would attend. And that was because he would, need something very specific, and they just would not do the things that he would need them to do. So I can believe the stories that are about this. In fact, there's actually a Tumblr, if you can believe it, there's actually still a Tumblr that chronicles all of these bad voice actor experiences with Vic Mignonga himself.
Now, do I think that he should lose his entire career because he's an absolute butt munch? Excuse my language. No. There are many people in the entertainment industry that are known to be jerkwads. I mean, I don't want to name a lot of people, but yeah, Justin Bieber certainly comes to mind. There are even people on YouTube who have a massive following and are known to be absolute D-bags.
Now, come on, Noble. We know who you really want to say, and it's fine. You can call him by name. I know where he touched you on your no-no parts. It's probably the anime man, isn't it? Just go ahead and say it. We're all here for you.
Do I think that they should lose their entire career, their livelihood, and everything because they're jerks? No. There's people I don't like on YouTube, and I still don't think that they deserve to have everything stripped away from them because I don't like them as a human being. If the world worked like that, everyone would be miserable because everybody has someone that hates them.
My list of people who hate me is small but growing.
Even the nicest people. I would never wish someone's career to end. I never would want that. And I never will do that because I stand by my morals that I don't want to end somebody's career just because they're a jerk. Because to somebody out there, they have some worth. They make someone happy in a non-harmful way to the community. And as long as they're not doing something completely illegal, then they should be allowed to continue. So yeah, whether he's an angel, a normal human being, or a jerkwad, I don't think that's relevant here.
You're right, it is kind of irrelevant, but it doesn't really change the fact that these are also, even the smallest allegations where people have had run-ins with him, especially the way that he mistreats staff. In fact, he's been banned from going to certain conventions because he's been rude to staff before, and they just don't want to tolerate that level of incompetence from him, where he's constantly demanding things or being completely rude as to call them names, or ordering Dasani water because that's all that he really wants out of life, I guess, is Dasani water. But, I mean, I'm sure you have more things that you're going to share.
And finally, the big dog in the room here, the sexual assaults of him, kissing and hugging fans without their consent. Let's jump into that because that seems to be one that actually has a lot of backing to it here.
Now, to be clear, before we do get into this, I would not really call this sexual assault, generally because no one's being assaulted, but I would say it's more sexual harassment or sexual misconduct. I think that's probably the word that you should have used, but that's just my take on it. And we'll get into each of these if we can. I can't promise anything. It's pretty late in the day for me, and I need to get to sleep soon.
Anyway, evidence I've seen on sites such as Anime News Network, where they have the pic of Vic kissing this girl, and then with the caption, approximately 43% of reasonable rangers were underage in 2006. Making this extremely yikes here, ain't it? And then above, a picture of a girl kissing Vic on the cheek. Heaven forbid. Anyway, I found the source of the image here, and I'll have to blur out the face yet again because I don't want to make enemies of people where it's saying, like, if this doesn't disturb you, I don't know what will, and they're claiming that this girl is underage, and he's kissing her without her consent, and she's extremely awkward. And then right below is a person saying, hey, I was there when that photo was taken. That girl kept asking me and the others that when Vic was coming over and over again until when he got there, she asked for a kiss on the cheek. She's 20 years old, by the way. So not only was this girl overage, but she also asked for the kiss on the cheek by Vic, waiting in line for that meetup.
Now, whoa there, Hoss. Let's go ahead and freeze frame a little bit, because in the bottom, you put that she stabbed him in the back after he did something for her. Well, she's not the one that stabbed him in the back, because the picture was only uploaded by someone else. So for all we know, this picture was probably uploaded on Facebook or probably put on Twitter somewhere, and then it was later put onto that Tumblr post, and then people took it out of context, but the person who saw the picture was like, nah, that's incorrect. And then they fixed it. And then Anime News Network, with their great reporting skills, decided that they were going to take it out of context. Now, when I went to that same clip over on their article, I didn't see the thing about the Risible Rangers and their 43% being underage that current year, but that probably was an edit, and, we're just not going to talk about it because, they're going to cover that up whatever way they want. But that is one that has been debunked, and it's one that we can just go ahead and pass over. So let's get to the other ones.
So again, you gotta take some of this evidence with a grain of salt. And the fact that they're saying, the stats of 43% of the Risible Rangers were underage in 2006. Yeah, so what? PewDiePie's audience is a group of 9-year-olds. What does that have to say to you? Ninja's audience is also underage. So, does that automatically make you a horrible human being if you have young fans? I have young fans. Oh God, I guess I'm a horrible human being now.
Listen here, we already know that Anime News Network is in the back pocket of Crunchyroll, so I don't know why this comes as a surprise to you, especially since you're shilling their website so often. But just, come on, you gotta know that there's something amiss here when Anime News Network is still getting shit wrong.
Just a statement like that offends me in the absolute stupidest way. What kind of journalism is that? Do you have to be over 18 years old in order to like anything in this country? Is that what we're coming to in 2019? But still, regardless, there are these awkward photos of him hugging a fan and then putting his hand underneath her sweatshirt there. And then the pics of her smiling and him closing in, and then also giving her a kiss on the cheek. Now, yes, I will agree, that's pretty awkward. Putting it underneath the sweatshirt there, yeah, that sucks. That's a little bit eyebrow raising, to say for certain. The kisses on the cheek, though, that's pretty innocent, man. I hope that your mom, dad, brothers, and sister kissed you on the cheek, too, when you were young. Even now, I hope they still freaking kiss you when you're an adult.
Yeah, that picture is a little creepy, and the hand under the sweater thing, the hand under the hoodie, yeah, that's that is weird. And then, of course, he's kind of taking it a step further with the kiss, but I'm not going to freak out about the kiss, but when you're kind of combining those two together, it kind of seems like it's a little bit too touchy-feely, but I mean, that's coming from someone like me, and I'm not a very touchy-feely person anyways, but that is a little weird if you think about it. So don't try to pass this one up so easily. And looking at it from a different lens, I actually had to look at it that way. Especially if you're in the public space and you're doing things that people probably didn't want you to do anyways. You're doing this on your own. That's his own thing. Don't try to defend that one.
I hope people are nice to you and are affectionate with you and love you. The fact that we're making a kiss on the cheek or a forehead a way to condemn someone that's a little pushing it too far here now.
Great. Now I'm going to sound like the people that I get angry at, but consent here is very important. And I think that's what we really have to take away from this, is that even if she said, yeah, that's fine, I would like a hug and I don't mind it, whatever, and maybe just a little peck on the cheek, it was still a little weird if you think about it. Now, for certain people, that may raise a couple of red flags and that may trigger something in them. Trigger, it's a funny thing. But, it may, do something to them and they just don't feel comfortable with it. And I can completely get that. Especially this one clip that I actually came across while looking, and this one is kind of creepy. So if you're getting creepy vibes from this video, then I completely understand.
Go. Okay, go for it.
Are you recording now?
Yeah.
Rachel, please don't tell Winry this, okay? But I love you.
That was even a little weird for me. It sounded like Michael Jackson from Beyond the Grave. But let's get into the next part of this here.
The main thing, of course, here is obviously the consent factor, though. Is he getting consent? Some people are claiming that he is not getting it and he's just randomly kissing them on the cheek. And, with the amount of encounters here, maybe there's at least one of them where he has not asked for consent and he's done it. Which I will agree is pretty wrong.
As we learned with Momo-kun and her situation, consent is very important when you're in an anime convention, especially when you're surrounded by hundreds and potentially thousands of people where they're just trying to have a good time and they probably don't want weird people or strangers touching on them.
And which he's also apologized for in his apology message on Twitter. Again, people come from different backgrounds. Vic comes from a very affectionate family. And I know some people are very reserved, especially in the anime community. So getting this kind of extreme amount of affection would be a little bit shocking. You also need to realize that this man has, I think, from what was stated, 2 to 3 anime conventions he goes to in a month. So that's a lot of anime conventions he goes to in a year, of which he's been doing since 2010? And before 2006 probably? So obviously when he's meeting so many fans, and this man is vastly, infinitely more popular than I can possibly imagine, than myself here, I can only imagine that he's had a few awkward encounters with some fans and they've taken pictures of it, and it's just that just happened.
Having a couple dozen anime conventions within a year is a big deal, and I get that, but it also doesn't really give you a free pass to kind of just treat your anime convention staff like shit, and it also doesn't give you the excuse to forget consent or, whatever the kids are talking about these days. But the other thing is that even with that level of just fandom, generally best practices don't do anything that you would not be feel comfortable with, but also just kind of keep your hands to yourself, the golden rule here. And some voice actors or voice actresses, they generally just take selfies from behind the booth. They never really get close enough to be within, an arm's reach of a convention goer. They just kind of, hey, take a selfie for the Instagram, and then that's pretty much it. And then they walk on their happy lives, and that's all that happens. Now, in Vic's case, he obviously he gets some fans that really want him to, whisper sweet nothings into their ear, and he really wants to hug them and give them kisses on the cheek. But, to me, that's a little weird, but to them, that's probably just a-okay. But for him, the best practice is to probably not do those things. And I would probably think that after almost 13 years, he would probably get that message.
I've had awkward encounters with fans where I'm just like, shit, I wish I did that a little bit better. I mean, it's always weird when you are meeting this person who knows and loves you and feels like you're their brother, sister, someone that they look up to, a hero, but you know absolutely nothing about them and have no idea how to handle them. You just try and go with the flow. You're like, okay, sure, you try your best. And sometimes, you accidentally mess up, a hug, and it gets a little weird. I didn't mean to put it, kind of, on the shoulder or on the neck, or, a little bit too low on the waist there. God damn it, it's weird. Especially when they have, cosplay and stuff on. You have no idea, and they want a hug, and you're like, well, how do I, maneuver my hands so I don't fuck shit up?
I'll go ahead and put that on the records here that usually that stuff kind of goes away after you've been to your first convention. You know how to appropriately touch people if you're going to give them a hug, especially if they're in cosplay. They kind of have all the plastic shit on them, and then you have to reach around it, or you're just like, okay, well, a simple handshake will do. Just a how do you do?
There was even a popular post on Twitter, like of people kind of like shouting out their stories here, and I'll read to you a couple of posts. I'll never forget that time a bunch of friends and I were in the dealer's halls at a con, and someone mentioned his name, to which I loudly shouted, Vic, dude, I freaking hate that butthole. Turns out the reason he was mentioned was because he was right behind me. And a lot of people are liking it here. Well, that just seems like an absolutely rude thing to say to him. I don't know what kind of point you're trying to prove here. I wish I still had the picture when we had a hotel room next to him at EvilCon, like 5 years back, and he was rude to my panelists and overran his panel on purpose to spite us, and my roommates put his butt on his hotel door and farted in it loud enough for him to hear it and come out. So not only did you follow him and creep and stalk him to his hotel door room and exposed where he was, but then you also like farted on it and disturbed him in his home at the time. Like, that's messed up. And people are celebrating this kind of behavior.
Now, I'm going to let you finish here, Noble, but I just want you to know that I can go on Twitter and also cherry pick some comments as well. Because, Twitter is also a vast majority of people that will typically like or retweet something for the sake of it.
A trans man friend of mine once saw him at a con, despite presenting male, even in a cosplay for a man, the guy still misgendered my friend, calling him a cute girl, even after my friend said he wasn't a girl. He's gross. Oh my god, he called you cute. What a jerk. Would you prefer to call you ugly? Holy crap. Look, I get the whole trans thing here of you wanting to be labeled properly by what you want to be labeled by, but you gotta admit at sometimes, like, depending on where you are in your transformation, it gets difficult for you to tell. And accidents happen. I sincerely doubt he called you a girl in a malicious way. Especially calling you a cute one.
Now you're just bringing up Twitter PTSD for me. That's what happened when I had to deal with doodle tones.
But then there are tweets that say, at SoccerCon, friends of friends, underage of course, friends of friends, were invited to, so already we're going through the grapevine here. Friends of a friend were going to a hotel room for a drink. Of course, when they got there, they realized that they were the only ones there with him and booked it straight out of there 10 years ago at least. My god. And if any of them could DM me, I'd love to hear from them, says somebody. And then I'll see if my friend is still in touch. So this person sounds like it was a friend of a friend who they have no connection with anymore. Like, oh my god, this is evidence now?
Well, I'm glad that you got to this point, because now I can show you this evidence that kind of shows you a little bit more about how you kind of cherry-picked some of these comments. Here's a tweet thread from a user named Mary. I remember going to a con when I was younger and a lot more naive. I was an avid Vic fan and he had kissed my cheek during a photo without my consent, though at the time it didn't faze me. Hearing about other people's experiences come to fruition makes me feel really gross. Here is the photo. Beforehand, he just told me to just focus on looking into the camera and smile. I want to make it clear that despite the fact I am smiling in this photo, I did not consent to him doing this. I was 15. And I did not realize his malicious intent until I was a lot older. After hearing a lot of other people's stories, I knew I had some proof of context for his behavior and wanted to shine light on this. This is not something you do to anyone without consent, especially underage fans who look up to you. Now, I know that that's only one story, but I could probably go and find a little bit more, but for the sake of this video, because it's almost an hour, I'm going to go ahead and leave it right there, and I'll post a link to that thread that's already been archived, but I'll post it nonetheless, and then you can go to that user if you want, but everybody should just leave these people to be, and I'm not going to use the believe all the victims, because, not everybody's telling the truth, but in this case, I do believe Mary. So, be nothing but respectful to Mary.
And yes, there are stories in this thread here that basically do say that he is pretty gross, such as like he's fondling younger girls and inviting them to go up to the hotel room, etc. and stuff like that. But there's no proof of it. And that's kind of the problem here.
Now, in that very instant that I showed you this photo, which I'll go ahead and just remind everybody that this video came out before, but even this tweet thread was, out before this video was, you still could have researched it a little bit more. Now, I don't know if you're familiar, but lawyers often use what's called circumstantial evidence. With enough evidence, or enough in quantity as far as like stories being reported, it can effectively show a pattern of things that a person does. So if it's something where a criminal may be tried or something like that, then they can show repeat behavior. And if it's a large amount, then obviously it's circumstantial evidence. Now, I know that you're going to go with the innocent until proven guilty method, which it should be, because I think that everybody, should have to be proven. But with this, there's enough evidence out there, just from the people that may have met him in person and they're like, oh, he's a cool guy. But there's other people that are saying, nah, not so much. And and the one girl, Mary, has proof of that. So you can't just throw that away.
Like, I want to believe some of these stories. Like, some of these sound absolutely horrific. But if he's doing this all the time, how come nobody has caught him on camera yet? The most we see, obviously, are the pictures of him kissing people on the cheek or the forehead, and also the hugs. And that's all I'm getting. A very big story that a lot of people are citing, especially in news articles, is this one here, which I will read. I've been seeing a lot going around about Vic recently. I've kept quiet because I didn't want to ruin my career. I do not want to get involved, do not want to get invited to conventions. But I can't keep quiet about it anymore. I used to have the same opinions as everyone else. Oh well, he's always been nice to me, but after seeing his behavior evolve in front of me over the years on my own assault story, I can't keep it to myself anymore. About 10 years ago, I was a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed cosplayer at the height of my cosplay career. I was really well known for being the official character model for several anime companies and worked a lot of voice actors for events. I was so high up on the staffer at conventions I loved, I was also going through a divorce. A voice actor I'm not going to name because I can't be alone to do this, he's too powerful in the community, that I really admired and thought was cute was flirting with me. Used my divorce as an in, him and another man kept feeding me drinks. Despite another voice actor kick him in the leg to stop, he kept going. He invited me up to his room to see his Japanese candy collection. I blacked out. I woke up half off his bed, undressed just from the waist down. I couldn't even see whose room I was in. I gathered my stuff and left horrified. After talking to a couple people, I pieced together what had happened that night. I was too young to understand what consent was in the situation and thought that he was truly interested in me.
The person who made that post was Jessie Pridemore, who is actually a cosplayer, but in the channels that she's known, she's been prone to lie, and it's, pretty much a throwaway story. But her story about having two people there that were voice actors does match up with Todd Haberkorn's story, which is on Facebook, but it's now since gone, but it's still saved through an archive link. And it also was featured a little bit more on Adam Sheehan's Facebook post that he then went on a little bit more. And you can see that here in the Twitter thread. Now, what does that ultimately do for Vic Mignonga? Not much, other than it probably just puts him more into the spotlight of doing more bad things. But then again, he doesn't really have any proof of his own, whereas Todd Haberkorn had the actual screenshots, which are still saved in that archive link.
Alright, so I'm just gonna stop there, because there's a few warning bells that should be hitting you right now. Apparently, her saying that she was too young, too innocent to understand what consent was is stupid. She was married and even getting divorced. At that point, you are now a full-grown adult responsible for your own actions. Do not give me that bull crap. And apparently, she doesn't know how to say no and stop drinking alcohol. Because I guess she's also too young and innocent to understand that drinking alcohol makes you black out. You have the power to say no and walk away at any time.
Okay, guys, this is like coming up on an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this down a little bit. He's just going to go on a rant about drinking and knowing that if you're going to black out, why would you wake up in someone else's, hotel room? Let's go ahead and skip.
But anyway, that was a whole tie-in to Vic here, where apparently she met him later and he stopped her from leaving, and where he then slides his hand up through her hair, which is long at the time, and tugs on the back of it, and basically tried to seduce her. The weird thing is here that not only did he do this weird gesture of sliding a hand through her hair and tugging it and saying, like mentioning another dude, is that she got away at the time, a friend interfered, and then it happened a second time where he grabbed her hair and said the same thing? And said that he wanted to do her? Like, this just seems very odd. This whole story sounds so bullshit to me that I don't know what to make of it.
Here's kind of my 2 cents. Since you keep insisting that we need photographic evidence, which I was also a hard evidence person, but the more I thought about it, when you're at a convention, one of the last things that you ever have really is your phone out, so where you can take a picture. Because you're generally at the bar, you're just kind of hanging out, and to not draw attention to yourself, you generally just don't have your phone out, or you're just having a good time drinking. And even if that were the case, I don't record every single thing that ever happens. Otherwise, I would have a lot more pictures from what happened at MechaCon, because that was actually a lot of fun.
But anyway, I can only hope that this is made up. I really want none of this stuff to be real, because it just seems so far-fetched. And the fact that you're stressing like I was too naive, even though I was married and getting a divorce, and I absolutely had control of myself, and I was a fully fledged adult capable of making decisions, but I won't take responsibility for that. Just seems over the top. I mean, I'm gonna keep going through some stuff that people have been posting here on like Tumblr. I drew Yahweh and slipped under Vic's hotel room door at a con. The story spread around and someone asked him about it at a Q&A panel, and he adamantly denied anyone has ever put anything under his door. Why he gotta lie like that?
Don't use the actions of Tumblrites to try to use that as commonplace for any anime convention goer.
So this person stalked Vic all the way to his hotel door and put in gay homo anime porn. Just for him to look at, and he basically spread rumors about it at cons, getting people to talk about it, and Vic, being the professionals, just denied it because he doesn't want to admit where he's staying and have invaded his privacy and also done illegal stuff. Like, what the heck is this community? Are you guys not saying anything about this clearly illegal behavior? You guys are supporting this kind of stuff in your crusade against Vic?
If only you heard half of the things that happen at anime conventions, that kind of seems like the smallest thing that happens. And trust me, after just the 2 that I've went to, there's a lot that happens. Now, I'm not saying that that's an excuse for what these people did, but there's a lot of other things that could have happened.
Another one here is, I remember one time at Anime Expo LA, he was asked like, how do you stay happy or something? And he legit said, well, I do something once a day, blah, blah. It's very special. I just close my eyes and thank God for everything, blah, blah. Then he asked for everyone in the audience to close their eyes and pray to God thanking him. And almost the entire audience did. Oh no, you're thanking God for your success. What a horror story. But anyway, there is stuff of him online, especially on YouTube, of, you just gotta type in Vic Mignonga, and then you will see a bunch of stuff of him meeting people, about him kissing people. And here, let's just check a few of them out.
Now, I pretty much agree with you through most of this video, except for some of the parts about consent and, it's kind of weird. But some of the videos that do prove Vic wrong were actually taken down, and that was due to Vic's fan base. Now, I can't really confirm that because it's just out there on the internet, but it seems that way from every link that I go to.
All right, here's a quick 6-second one.
No, now it's recording. Ready? Okay, ready?
There you go. That was the exchange there. Just a quick peck on the cheek and fangirl squeals.
We should record something for her.
Yes, please.
What is her
She
name?
loves Tamaki and her name is Maddie.
Maddie?
Here.
Tamaki loves you too. Oh, I promise he does. If you were here, he would come around. Let's pretend this is you right here. And he would come up to you and he would say, please be mine for
Best sister ever, right?
Now she got to do her homework.
Thank you.
Okay, now I know what you're going to say anyways, but just for suspense purposes, so you don't think that it's weird that he came from behind his table and just kind of was like on her back at all? Like he was only supposed to say a message, but instead he kind of just got all up on her. I just think that that's a little weird, especially when they didn't ask for that. All they wanted was they just wanted a fucking message.
Again, that was another video of him just saying a message to a fan. For a girl that likes Tamaki, who was supposed to be this smooth dude. And he's playing his role as the smooth dude that seduces women in the Oran High School Hose Club. That was what they did. They seduced women. Made them feel like they were loved. That was the point of it.
Yeah, that was the point of the recording, but not so much the touching on the girl that was just unrelated to it.
And I have to say, I found on YouTube that you were proposed to by a Roy Mustang cosplayer. And
Yes,
you said
it's true.
if it was fire sauce, you would have said
They're
yes.
waiting.
So, will you marry me?
Yes. I will do it.
I did it! I got it!
We're gonna be so happy together. Are you getting a picture? Are you gonna take a picture first?
I'm videotaping.
Oh my gosh, we're taking lots of pictures. Yeah. Would you
Get
snap a
video
picture?
first? You gotta get
All right, and that was an exchange of a girl proposing to him and him very politely saying yes.
Yes, there was consent involved, especially since the camera was rolling. But had that not been the case or so many people around, then maybe that would have changed, but I'm not here to really determine that. And see, that's pretty much what this whole Vic Mignonga thing is all about, is we don't really know what really happened, and the only people that do are the fans that were there, and Vic himself.
Like, I don't know what to say. There's so much footage of him just being kind to fans at this point. Especially at points where he could have easily taken advantage of stuff, but he obviously didn't. He just seemed to be an upstanding guy.
Okay, well, the video's been going on for quite a while, and this is a lot longer than I like to talk about anything in the entire world. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you just watch the rest of the video on your own. It's not a bad video. I think that there's still room for improvement there. But as far as I can tell, all of this is down to interpretation and whose ever side you want to be on. But let's not forget that voice actors aren't always the best people. Even Scott Freeman years ago was convicted of possessing child pornography. These people, just because they voice your favorite anime characters like Issei from High School DD, doesn't really mean that they're good people in real life either. Another example of that is DC Douglas. The things that he does in his private life, you would never think that he does those things when he's playing Yoshikage Kira on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But that's just the nature of who these people are. Even voice actresses like Monica Rial, they're coming out in defense of these victims. Now, I'm not saying that that's the end-all be-all, because there are plenty of other people that will defend Vic. And, I mean, that's just down to what it is. I have no dog in this race other than the fact that I don't trust any voice actor, only the ones that I work with. And that's because they're good people and I know their work ethic. I know what they do outside of making good voiceover content and what they do when they're not doing that. So at this point, all we can really do is just wait and see what happens. But there's too many stories out there to just let this be not brought up. And I think that Lost Pause, for what it's worth, bringing this to light and giving some opinion on it, even though some of the stuff is a little rocky at best, was still a good choice nonetheless. And you don't really hear anything from any other camp, especially people like Mother's Basement. You don't hear anything from the anime man. I don't hear anything from any of those people. But I guess that's because money speaks, and if it doesn't get those clicks, then they probably don't care. But all I'm saying is, if there is a chance that any of this is true, then so be it. And if it's not, then oh well. But don't meet your heroes, because you never know if they might be a pedophile or if they might just be a massive asshole. And I guess that's what I'll leave you with on this hour and 10-minute video.